So you've bought getting over it. Whether you're some sort of masochist or you genuinely believe the game would be fun, here you are. Now this isn't an easy game, you most likely knew that coming in, and you might have dismissed it at first for this reason. But I want to tell you why it's important for you to finish getting over it, and the meaning beyond just games. At first when you're playing, you're making a lot of progress. There might be a few minor setbacks, but nothing that makes you quit the game. Obstacle after obstacle passed. And you're even enjoying Bennett Foddy's commentary. You don't really know why people struggle so much with this game. But then it happens. It could be anywhere really. The Devil's Chimney, the chair, or like me, Orange Hell. There is an insurmountable obstacle between you and finishing the game, and nothing you do is going to change it. You try and you try and you try and try again, and every time you fall back down, until, in a series of poorly executed maneuvers, you fall all the way back down to the bottom. And if you're like me, one of the first things you'll do is run to YouTube to watch somebody else getting over it. But no matter how carefully you follow them, it is absolutely hopeless. Next I'm on Reddit, looking for other people also stuck, like I need some sort of fucking support group. And of course, there's some guy claiming he beat it in 20 minutes on his first attempt. And it just makes me angrier and angrier. You're just about ready to give up now. There's a section in Robert Pirsig's book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where the author explores this idea of stuckness. One of the best-selling philosophy novels of all time, the book details the story of Pirsig and his son's motorcycle journey across the United States. Late into the journey, Pirsig describes a scenario in which you go about performing motorcycle maintenance, only to be stopped by a screw that refuses to move. You check the manual for any indication as to why this screw won't move, and it tells you only to remove the cover plate it's attached to. You might try a number of methods that proved successful in the past to remove the screw, and as you keep trying, you realise you are completely stuck. This tiny insignificant screw has absolutely stopped you from fixing the motorcycle. Your mind was so far ahead thinking about what you were going to do when the cover plate was off, that you haven't even realised the screw is the most important thing right now. It is a moment of complete misery. You're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing, you should be ashamed of yourself. And most importantly, you're clearly not cut out for this. You could take a sledgehammer to the cover plate or just drop the machine off a bridge altogether. It is completely outrageous that a tiny screw could defeat you so totally. And the more you think about it, the angrier you get. But before you do that, Pirsig asks us to reevaluate our assumptions about the screw. Our past experience has led us to believe that the screw is a minor and insignificant part of motorcycle maintenance. But right now, it is the only thing standing between us and fixing the motorcycle. Most importantly, your ego is tied directly to this problem. Any admittance that you are not able to do it feels like a step back from everything you have worked so hard to accomplish. Over an action so simple as removing a screw, we need to assess the value of this screw and approach it with a beginner's mindset. And whilst it seems like all these ideas and preconceptions about removing the screw are never going to leave your head, your mind will naturally and freely move to a solution. Normally, you would think of the obstacle as unimportant, but now you realise it was worth uninstalling the entire game. With this understanding comes an entirely new re-evaluation of the obstacle. It might take 10 minutes, 30 minutes, you might need to take a break and come back to it tomorrow. But ultimately, your brain will work towards a solution, and eventually, you'll get over it. But even with all this in mind, why would you bother with all this frustration, just to stumble at the next obstacle, all to finish a game? And for a lot of people, there's no reason to carry on with it. Why would you keep playing such a frustrating game when there are thousands of other games that offer an easier and more pleasurable experience? But this isn't just about games. It's about a lot of aspects of life that are being bypassed in favour of instant gratification. When I open up the YouTube app on my phone, it automatically goes to YouTube Shorts. It feels like a big defeat. It's telling me that I prefer a 5-second clip I could barely remember minutes later over any longer form of video. It almost feels like playing slots at a casino, scrolling mindlessly until I find a video that gives me a boost of serotonin. But instead of wasting money, I'm wasting my time. We choose to take this modern superhighway of pleasure where our brains are instantly gratified. There's no reason to take the longer scenic route, where the roads are harsher and you could get lost on the way. What I mean by this is that there's not a lot of patience for games, hobbies, or other goals where frustration is common. This feeling of an insurmountable obstacle that checks all your progress you've worked so hard to make. Why would you bother when you could just get the same pleasure for none of the pain? There's a video by Kurzgesagt called "What Are You Doing With Your Life?" and the premise of this video is about separating your life into weeks. Assuming you live to 100 years old, you would have 5,200 weeks in your lifetime. And it got me thinking, if I spend 30 minutes a day using social media, how many weeks of my life is that? So I worked it out, and the answer was pretty terrifying. Assuming from years 20 to 100 I keep this up, I would spend over a year and a half of my life watching videos I can't recall minutes after. If I can spend a year of my life watching videos I'll never remember, why can't I put 30 minutes in something that'll serve me for life? And I guess that thought scared me more than any frustration that any games, hobbies, or goals could throw at me. I've started reading books again since Christmas. It's something I haven't done for pleasure since I was maybe 13, and until recently I've associated it with the work I do for school, and couldn't imagine it being in any way relaxing. At first reading felt like a slog of patience. I put down the books numerous times after the first few minutes. There's pages, chapters, and even entire books where I feel like everything I read I'll forget when I put the book down. But after a while, it stopped feeling like a chore. Hours might go by before I put it down, or something might resonate with me so deeply it sticks with me long after I finish the book. And in a really vain way, one of the best parts is seeing the finished books stack up on my shelves. Most importantly, it feels like taking some control. Half an hour a day, or a year and a half of my life. When I finally finished getting over it, my first thought was relief. After numerous rage quits, frequent and long breaks, and uninstalling once or twice, I was so relieved to have finished the game and never have to touch it again. But a funny thing happened a little while after finishing that first climb. I booted up the game and started it again, but now with a completely different perspective. I enjoyed swinging from obstacle to obstacle. I was interested in the game's commentary. Playing it didn't feel like a slog of patience, it was fun. Something I would have hardly expected the first time I played getting over it.